In children, there are sensitive periods in their life where specific types of learning take place called windows of opportunity. And missing a window can be detrimental to their development. For kids, not hearing well can affect a lot of that development. But fortunately, there are ways to actually test their hearing from birth. I found out more from audiologist Dr. Geneva Coe.
The first few years of development in a child are absolutely critical to their development of speech and language and a lot of the basic building blocks for education. It used to be that we didn't have the technology to test these children at a very young age, and sometimes we didn't pick them up till they were 2 or 3 years old. And as a result, there's a lot of permanent, irreparable damage to these people. Since the technology has changed, we can now test them at a very early age. There's a multitude of causes of hearing loss. Sometimes children are born with hearing loss due to developmental issues with the mom. Rubella used to be a big issue. Of course, that's being dealt with pretty well now. Sometimes if parents have been on different substances that they shouldn't have been on, sometimes there can be trauma at birth. So there are a number of issues. So when a child is born and there's any risk involved, then you want to pay particular attention. But for the last few years, it's been pretty much mandatory across the country that all newborns be evaluated while they're still in the neonatal unit. They evaluate them with screening tools, so they do a very good job of it. But sometimes the children fail and don't really have a hearing loss. So if your child fails in the newborn screening, they will generally refer them to a clinic like ours where we will test them in more detail. So you don't panic just because your child failed the initial screening. In most instances, we don't find hearing losses in those children, although unfortunately in many children we really do. But early intervention is really the key to all of this.
And we actually have a beautiful little model here, and she's getting her hearing tested, and you've done a lot of these procedures on these children, haven't you?
Yes. Basically, the way we do this, we use a technology called auditory brainstem response, where we do a test where we put little electrodes on the baby. It's kind of like an EEG, except we're actually holding an earphone to the baby's ear, and at the same time we're measuring the responses of the inner ear nerve mechanism that occur at the same time that the sound comes on. And then what we can do is gradually reduce that sound until those nerve responses disappear. So that gives us a method of analyzing the auditory nerve response. The other thing that we do, which is a very nice adjunct, there are tools now where we can measure sound coming out of the ear. Now you generally think of the ear as a microphone, it's picking up sound. Well, the ear is actually a speaker as well, and we've got the technology to measure very, very tiny signals that are emanating from the ear. So essentially we send a signal to the ear and it answers us. And we can do that in different frequency ranges, and based on that get a pretty good idea of not only does the child hear, but what frequencies they do hear and what frequencies they don't hear. So the technology is at a point now where we are no longer limited. You couldn't really ask a newborn to hold up their hand when they heard a sound or to repeat a word. And so unfortunately a lot of children were missed. But at this point we can get a very, very good picture regardless of the age of the child.
And I know as a parent, I love the idea of this because she's not upset. You know, there's so many times you take a kid to the doctor and they're screaming their head off, but this is not invasive at all.
No, and normally we do this with natural sleep. We generally have the babies taking a nap. We put the electrodes on them. Sometimes they cry a little when we stick the tape on them, but once they fall asleep, it requires no responses on the part of the baby at all. So we simply start the test, and generally if the baby is asleep, we can do it within 30 or 40 minutes and have a very, very good assessment of the inner ear, of the auditory nerve, and even of the middle ear, the eardrum and the little bones behind the eardrum. And all of that is objective testing, which requires no response at all on the part of the baby.
So what if a parent out there suspects that there might be some hearing loss in their child, whether it's a baby or an older child?
Right.
What do they do then?
I think the first thing they need to do is contact their physician. Typically, if children have failed the hearing screening at the hospital, the neonatologist will generally refer them in for further testing to be sure that there really is a hearing loss or it was just artifactual. But you know, if time has gone by and your child passed the test initially, there are some issues that can occur as time goes on. And the best thing to do is check with your pediatrician, or if you're not sure, you can call us and we can give you guidelines. We normally like the child to be seen by an ENT physician. We are actually the ones that do the testing on the children, but we want to make sure there are no other medical issues that might be contributing to the problem.
Audiology Hearing Aid Associates has 2 locations in our area on Langhorne Road in Lynchburg, 434-528-4245. Also in Main Street in Danville, their number is 434-799-6288. And you can find more information at digitalhearingforyou.com.